What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 5. My name is John Poznansky.
And I am Harry, and welcome to Destination Talk with Paz and Harry. We are coming to you once again from Chop Studios, located at 750 Route 34 in Matawan, New Jersey. If you have any questions for us that you'd like to throw our way, or if there are any questions we forget to ask our guest and you'd like us to ask them, you can reach us on Instagram at destination_talk or at our email at destinationtalk101@gmail.com. Today, we have the man himself, the studio that this place is named after, Dave Sturchio. Dave, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. This is actually pretty cool. I don't really get interviewed anymore. Last interview I had with you, I interviewed you, so that was a trip. But yeah, man, this is awesome. Great success already on Destination Talk. A lot of buzz.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate the opportunity to use this wonderful studio. You've certainly made our lives a lot easier in trying to figure all this out.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What inspired you to create, Chop Sports Media?
All right, how much time you got? So
22 minutes.
Chop Sports Media was an idea started in a Facebook group. It was pandemic time. Nobody knew what was next. Nobody was leaving their house. So I had asked Chris Gucci, who you know, Colonia guy. He started this Facebook group for everybody to just kind of conversate, talk sports, chop it up, have you, in late 2020. And I latched on and I said, hey, man, what is this all about? And he's like, yeah, it's a Facebook group. We're just kind of, BSing about whatever's going on. There was no sports, so it was a lot of nostalgia talk at the time, like remember this or top 5 lists or whatever. And when I virtually walked into this Facebook group, I said, "Oh man, there's a nice little cast of characters here. Like this is actually really fun." I was like, I wonder if there's like a podcast that can come of this, because I come from the podcast background, radio background, broadcast background. And I was like, there's got to be more to this. It's not just a group anymore. It was like, I guess 3 weeks in, I said to Gooch, I said, look, man, we should start a podcast. The NFL was still rolling. We were going into the playoffs and all this other stuff. It was like January of 21. So it was just kind of off to the races, and then just kind of took off from there. And then, we got with a buddy of mine who said, hey, I found this space down in Matawan if you want to come check it out. It just so happened to be this particular space you're sitting in right now, but it was split between 4 guys. So we didn't really know, again, no direction whatsoever. Just like, hey, we need some space to do a podcast. He was getting those, what do we call them, Donnie Bucks or Donnie Dollars, like during the pandemic. We just didn't have anything to spend it on, like, what do we do? So we got the equipment, we started loading up, and, kind of went off to the races there. I said, all right, I think there's more content here. It's not just us talking. Let's get other people involved. We got Jimmy Palumbo from Colonia. He started doing a podcast here, and little by little, I was like, oh, we got a little bit of a network going on.
Right.
So then we just kind of opened up shop, and I think the big light bulb actually happened around the NIL thing. Like when that started, we were just like, how can we capitalize on this as a business, not just to do content anymore, but to help out college students earn some coin. That sweatshirt you're wearing right now earned this guy some coin. That's how it all kind of worked out. And the NIL thing was a big thing for our first year of success, because we latched on with a lot of college athletes, a lot of D1 school guys, not just Rutgers, but Rutgers just so happened to be home base. And when people see Chop Sports, they're like, oh, you must be a Rutgers podcast, right? Because they keep on chopping. And so I said, no, not even close, but it just so happened that you and Mike Tverdoff were the first people that we talked to. And then just kind of ran off from there. So like we just I knew it was going to be a media thing first, try to help out college students earn some scratch, because NIL, when it first came around, nobody really knew the parameters, right? Nobody you specifically were probably like, cool, I can get paid? How? And then Barstool started launching the Barstool Athlete. And I kind of said to myself, I was like, well, I know Portnoy's loaded and they got all the money in the world, but what are they actually doing for the college student? Turns out they were just giving like sweatpants and swag and stuff like that to the students. And it's like, oh, you could put us in your bio. And I was like, well, that's still not lining these kids' pockets.
It's more of an advertising thing for
That's
them.
really all it was. And I was like, well, there's got to be more to do for these students. So let's design some merch. Let's make them some money. And obviously we took a cut of that, and that's what kept us afloat. But it's kind of how it all started, and then just kind of took a life of its own.
Well, I was very happy for the merchandise because it allowed me to support my guy here, and I still wear his face at all these matches when I go see him. Anytime.
Mine's now a cutoff. I wear it to the gym now. So people are just like, why are you wearing this All-American on there? I'm like, don't worry about it. Go follow him. He's a Rutgers guy.
So what do you feel, what separates you from others in the industry?
I think, it sounds corny, but like passion doesn't, I understand passion doesn't necessarily pay the bills, right? It's a very hard industry to break into because everybody's got a podcast. Everybody has a camera phone. Everybody's got, they all have the tech, but it's just a matter of like a community thing now. So like when we first started, the first thing I wanted to do was be a part of like Mattawan Day when they had like this big
I remember that
parade of stuff.
That, yes.
Like I want to do that. I want to get involved in the community. How could we outreach? How can we help kids? How can we help the students? How can we do all that all while talking crap? You know what I mean? Like, and doing some podcasting along the way. So that's right away what separated us because it's more community based rather than we can't wait to be the next Barstool. We wanted to be the first Chop Sports. If that makes sense.
And you have quite a few shows that you're involved with right now, right?
Too many. I do my own show called Turn My Mic Up. I just launched that one. I needed my own vehicle first. It's been a while since I've done my own thing because I'm either doing the Jersey Boys podcast, which is my Dallas Cowboys content. I co-host the Jimmy Palumbo show with him on Tuesdays. I do the Wrestling Hour, which is my professional wrestling stuff. So, I have no time ever to do anything other than to be here.
Yeah, I would say like what John said to me the other day, when you find some time to do something, and he's laughing at me as he says that to me sarcastically because I know what it is to have no time.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your pro wrestling career and how you got into that?
Yeah, I've been a fan of pro wrestling since I can remember. I always go back to the same story, and it's a fun one because it's like I'm hitting there trying to hit the remote when I'm like 7, and I cross this thing called the barber shop, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Yep. I was like, but this is interesting. It caught my attention, and I saw this one guy throw another guy through the plate glass window, and I'm like, well, I'm hooked. Like, I don't know what this is, but I'm hooked. Turned out to be Shawn Michaels, which is my all-time favorite wrestler, and then I was a fan my whole life. I had it's so kind of coincidental that we're recording today because it is my best friend's birthday. He passed away in 2007, and me and him had aspirations to be tag team champions of the world. That was our thing. We started on the trampoline. Here we go. We're going to be the next Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys, whatever, Rockers. I don't know, name the Legion of Doom, whoever. And he tragically passed away, and I wasn't anywhere near in shape to be a professional wrestler in 2007. I was 21 at the time. So I waited for 22. I waited about 5 years, and I was in the crowd of a local independent show in Rahway, and I saw the promoter do some fun stuff in the ring, and I'm like, man, it'd be so cool to finally like chase this thing if I can. And I met the promoter in the hallway, and he looked at me. He's like, oh, you're a bigger dude. Like, you ever think about doing this? I was like, it was one of those, did I? Like, oh, boy, and I just, I joined the school the next month. He launched the school with 12 students, much like I'm sure you started with like a couple of kids, and all of a sudden it just grows. So that's exactly what this was. And I started my training, and it was a ride, man. It was so much fun. A lot of crap you got to deal with, too. I mean, look. I'm saying this to all these people out here, I wish it was fake, okay? Because it ain't. I'm down an ACL, I'm down a couple concussions, and some cracked ribs and a broken face. I've done a lot of cool stuff in the business, but ultimately it was a great ride. I retired from in-ring relatively quick. It was like 4 years in. I got knocked out cold, and I remember waking up. I was like, I think I'm done. I think if I ever want to, at the time, I was like, if I ever want to have kids, I kind of want to remember their names. You know what I mean? So I was like, how do I avoid doing that? Because I've played football my whole life growing up, and then baseball, basketball. That was another story. Just look at me and be like, is he a basketball player? Probably not.
Maybe a future episode.
I tried. Yeah, I tried it, but that was wrestling was cool. I got to wrestle. My claim to fame is wrestling Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Okay.
I lost that match.
Did he have the 2x4?
He did have the 2x4. Okay. He chased me around the ring with the 2x4 in front of my entire family. So that was the coolest experience of all time. wrestling has provided me with a lot of cool stuff. And when I stopped in ring, I segued over to announcing and used my broadcast background to call some of the best matches I've ever watched. And the opportunities kept presenting themselves more as an announcer than they did when I was an active wrestler. So I wasn't the best wrestler in the world, but I loved it, and I knew I had the passion for it, and I have the voice for it. So just kind of took off from there.
Little safer too.
Yeah,
Unless they're throwing themselves through the table where you're at.
I've since I was a former wrestler, they knew that they can kind of mess around with me too. So unfortunately, I was on the receiving end of a couple things like, "Ooh, he missed," but he hit the announcer. You know, the announcer has to go flying.
Good story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Are there any stories? I know wrestling has their fraternity of not telling things and stuff like that, but is there a story that you can share with the listeners that they might be interested in hearing from your in-ring days, or even just wrestlers you were around?
Yeah, I mean, independent wrestling is much, much different. And I've been in WWE locker rooms. I've been in TNA Impact Wrestling locker rooms. And I know higher level executives at AEW right now, right? So there's been a lot of backstage stuff that I was able to be privy to. Independent wrestling is a whole nother beast, right? I mean, you probably know it going from school to school. Even when you were in high school in Colonia, you would probably go on the road to do a wrestling meet, match, whatever, however you call it. I call it matches no matter what they are. Match, right? Yeah. And you would go in and like, this place is a dump. You know what I mean? You look around like, this isn't Colonia. You know what I mean?
Places
Some colleges too. So that's another big thing for me. One that stands out to me is that I got to wrestle on the same card as a wrestler named Rhino. And this dude is built like a brick sugar house, right? Yeah. And like he's, see, I did it. I'm not bad at that. Not as bad as I used to be. And I used, since a former football player, I know how to tackle. So like my finishing move was the spear, the tackle, right? Just so happens that this guy Rhino, he's a legend. His finisher is also the spear, called the gore.
Was this pre-Goldberg?
This is after Goldberg. Okay. Goldberg's still trying to do it, which is insane. He's like 70. But what's funny was because I was like, what am I going to do, man? I can't. It's as a respect thing. You can't use the guy's finisher in another match. Like that's what everybody came to see is see him do it. Don't see some schmuck named Dave Destruction do it. So I'm like, all right, I'll change it up for the night. And I got to meet him at the end of the night. And I said, hey, sir, nice to meet you. I love your finishing move. I've adapted it as my own. I was going to use it tonight, but I saw you're on the card, so out of respect, I didn't want to do it. He goes, oh, I don't give a shit. I was like, what? Like all this stress that I went through just trying to figure out how am I going to finish this match without my finishing move. But yeah, stuff like that. You meet so many legends around, and there's great legends that you can pick apart, pick their brain, learn the ropes, literally and figuratively. And then there's people you can't approach, right? I've met a couple of these guys that were just like, get out of here, kid.
Well, the same exists in my industry, and I'm sure the same exists in your sport too. There are people that you can go to, but the reality is some of them you can't.
It's a selfish business. It is.
It's cutthroat.
It is. It's very cutthroat.
That profession's cutthroat. The training world is cutthroat. Loyalty at times is non-existent, and you have to have tough skin to get through it.
Tough skin is the name of the game in pro wrestling because, unfortunately for me, my physique might not match up to some of the other guys, and you're looking around, you're like, yeah, no, I'm not. I don't compare to that dude at all, and it plays tricks on you. You know what I mean? So then now you're like, should I not eat today? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys cut weight like nobody's business, but for me, I'm just like, just give me a laxative or something, just so I can look a little leaner today because this is insane. So it's a very cutthroat and odd business to be around. So yeah.
So both of you being business owners, can you guys talk a little bit about, the demands, the daily goals, the daily grind it takes to, be business owners, what it takes?
I mean, he can probably say just as much as me, but like, I know that I sacrificed a lot of time away from my family, away from, I remember when I first started this, I started my own production company, like as soon as the pandemic was like right about to start. And I knew, I was like, I'm on my own here. My daughter's name is Stella. So I called it Stellar Sports Media.
Go.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, but I was by myself. And I was like, well, this is not going to work. And I have no money. And like, how am I going to market it? Like this, that, and that. So it failed miserably right off the rip. So being that I'm still floating here somehow 4 or 5 years later, it means I did something right. But along the way, I remember telling Gooch, like I had my daughter, but I was like, hey, this NIL thing going to take off for us? Like, are we going to make some money here? Because, yeah, I'm having another kid. So it's like, I need this to work.
Right.
And as a dad, it's like even harder because you're away from your kids. 2020, I know it ruined a lot of people, but for me, being around my daughter for the first steps and the words, and that was really rewarding. But like come 2021, I got right back into this thing and I started to market this business. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of days I would come back and tell the wife, like, I don't have any money coming in this week. Maybe next week. You know what I mean? Maybe next week. Maybe something's got to pop. You know, something. We're gonna make it big. Don't worry. It's like the band. You know, the guy who's like, you know, just keep rocking. We're gonna get signed one day. You know, like and then you talk to that same band member like 20 years later. I'm like, how you doing? Like, we're gonna get signed one day. And I'm like, how the hell are you still around? You know what I mean? So it's a grind, man. You can test that too.
It definitely is. For me. When I made the commitment, well, my circumstances were slightly different. I was working out of another facility, and then I walked into work one day, and I was told in 2 weeks they were locking the doors.
Oh, wow!
So I had the ability to stick around for 6 weeks total. There was a little bit of an extension that I was able to do. I was able to still get paid. I had a trip planned to go out to Arizona to visit family, so I extended that trip and started it a little earlier because I just wanted to clear my head. And I remember coming back, this opportunity at the academy in Garwood presented itself and kind of fell into my lap. And I'm laying in bed, to your point, and I'm saying to myself, I'm not responsible for a staff, rent, utilities, paying for everything. If the parking lot has to get plowed, if it snows, you know, this thing breaks, a cable bill, and now I don't have a steady income anymore. So, you know, I'm, you know, my fiance, we're thinking about getting our own place. If we do that, how do I pay those bills? I've had many a moments in these last 2+ years of not knowing if the bills could get paid. And someone said to me once, has there been a moment when you weren't able to do any of that? And I said, no. And she just said, then just keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something right.
Right.
But it's very hard to trust that process when you're looking at what's in the bank account and you know the rent is due in a week and a half and there's a payroll coming up and you're scratching your head saying, how am I doing this?
Somehow, I always said pressure is like privilege. You know, like the pressure will absolutely, like, you know, you take it. It makes diamonds, you know, all this stuff, like all the cliche stuff that you hear, but it's all true. You know, it is all true. Like when I'm up against it is when I flourish, actually. Like
I have the same thing. Like when I feel my back is to the wall, I may have a moment or two where I kind of have a freak out thing, which is, I think you have to.
Absolutely.
But then there's this level of clarity, at least for me, I don't know if it happens for you, but then there's a level of clarity that comes into my mind and that says, okay, I can do this, and maybe we'll do this a little differently.
Yeah. So what defines success then for you guys in business?
Not being in debt,
Paying the bills every month
honestly,
is a starting point.
I just did my 24 numbers, right? I'm not like QuickBooks or anything. I'm not a tax guy, but I was like, hey, let's see how I did and let's see how much I've spent. If you break even as a business owner, consider yourself one of the luckiest men or women on the planet, because it's like, you did all this stuff and you made all this money and you spent all this money and you don't really have like any debt, you know? And that was a big thing for me and Chris when we first started this, was that we didn't open up any business credit cards. We're like, any dollar we make off of the NIL thing or whatever, like another show that we got hired to do, like we were going to put it right back into the business. Right. And if we were able to, we would give ourselves a couple bucks. Hey, go get some lunch. Hey, you know, and look, when you're a business owner, starting off, there's a lot of mistakes you make. We are ordering lunch every day. That's right off the rip. You're like, okay. They're like, wow, where's the money? And it's like, well, I don't know. You funded the pizzeria down the street for the last like 6 months straight. Like, how does, you know, that's where your money's going. So you just got to be smart. But that defines success to me, is the fact that I can still get up every morning and do it, and just know that there's going to be challenges. Look, man, I'm a big advocate of like mental health, and it's taxing. It's put me through therapy. I'm currently in therapy. You know, like I go every other week. It's not like an everyday thing, but like I got to clear my head every so often, or I got to recharge the batteries, or I got to get off social media for a minute, because social media is very fraudulent and fake, and you find out. everybody's doing so well. You know what I mean? But they're really not. You know, it's all fake. The authentic stuff is what drives me. Like, to know that somebody else is struggling,
Right.
that gets me going. I'm like, all right, good. I'm not alone here. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like,
and I would have to agree with that. And so I go once a month to therapy because I need to declutter my mind. I need to get what's up here out because, you could talk to people. I can talk to my fiance, but she's not there every day.
Right.
And you can talk to your business partner, but you're kind of going through the same thing.
Right.
And I can talk to you, but you're not in it because you're dealing with your own things of how to prepare for a wrestling match or a trip to Chicago, something of that nature. But it's nice to have that outlet to go to someone who's not going to judge you. You can say what you have to say.
Biggest part of it, yeah.
And you can get it off your mind. And she herself, being her own entrepreneur, can offer some advice on some of the things that she dealt with. Can offer some, and she's always talking. I'm not a business coach. She'll say to me, "I'm not a business coach, but this is what I did, or maybe this is what you should consider."
And not
doing.
for nothing, but and your significant other is a great source to rely on. However, what if some of your issues are with her? You know what I mean? And you have to go and all right, what am I going to talk to her about her? You know what I mean? Like, hey, it'd be really good if you change this. And then you're like, and then that's just World War III that we're not ready for.
Well, and the challenge too is, I'm not married, you're married, you have children, I don't have children, but
Oh, you got plenty of children. Like, they're all your clients.
Oh yeah, all my I got like 150 of them at this rate. Yeah, he's one of them right there. Probably
He's the biggest pain in the ass right
biggest child I got. But I feel that pressure because it's not just your pressure to your business partner, to your business, to your staff, to your customers. You got to go home and then, like you said, and say, I was only able to pay myself this much this week, and and we can't do what you want to do. It's like the money's got to go towards the bills.
Yeah,
and that's the challenge.
It's a sustainable thing. Sometimes when I'm able to treat for dinners and stuff like that, you feel like a rock star. You feel like, oh, nice, dude. Yeah, see that? I did that. Why? How are you able to do that? Well, Paz had a recording today. It's business at the end of the day. You try to just scratch and claw and just make your way, and that's the stressful part, but it's also the fun part because
it's rewarding.
It is rewarding because once somebody for instance, you guys are new clients of mine as well as friends. I knew you guys prior to this,
right.
But anybody who comes through these doors, I just look at it as not only opportunity, but okay, I'm doing something right. They're here. They're here at the studio to do their own thing because what have I built? Right. I built all this for them to come here and trust in me to get their product off the ground. So that's,
and as
that's
a
rewarding.
coach, it's the same thing for me with the athletes is that when they're showing up or when my college athletes are reaching out to me, hey, Harry, I'm home. Can you get me in? And can you train me? Or a family's referring a friend and a friend and a friend. That's my telling me that I'm doing something correct and right. And, that's what's going on. You mentioned the food thing, getting like a $150 sushi platter from Ganga over here right up the street or down the street. That's my treat for us when we go home.
Yeah.
It's we enjoy that a lot.
So with that being said, what is your vision for Chop Sports Media going forward?
So there's a lot of things have been in flux lately because of the fact that clientele went down a little bit. We were always kind of all right, so what do we do? Nothing drove me more nuts than when somebody said or comes up to me and says, how's the podcast? That means is that really what you think all I do is just a podcast? This is a little mini empire I'm trying to build here. You know what I mean? So it was it's not insulting, but it's almost man, pay more, be a little bit more open-minded. Know that this is not just a podcast. If I got paid to sit here and talk all day, I mean, that's the dream, right? But I have to do other things. So the future of Chop Sports Media is to continue to try to lift others up, and help them out because it's not so much Chop Sports Media anymore. It's the Chop Studios. You know what I mean? It's the people that come in here and do it. It's all encompassing. It's all under the same umbrella. But it's the word of mouth. It's to try to encourage people to, there's so many people out there that want to do a podcast. So many people. You and I have been talking about you doing a podcast for the last 3 years.
Correct.
Right. And it's now finally, trigger pulled. Here you guys are, episode 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever you got, you're on your way.
Yep.
And that says something because that means somebody wanted to do it and they're courageous enough to do it and sit in front of a mic, but they don't know how. They don't know what else is next. What else does it take? You have an editor. You have, your social media is basically you guys just trying to piece it all together. So my goal is to help others. It's not to be the next Pat McAfee or the next Barstool Sports. It's not. It was at one point. I was like, I could do that. I could definitely do all that. But it's more I think my calling to all of this is to just help other people try to do their thing and give people a voice and help people out a little bit.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that because that's how it goes. That's my world in training. And I think that was our initial message right from the start when we recorded our first episode, is to provide a platform for people to tell their stories, to get it out there to others, because I certainly had a story. I know he had a story. And then, for me, it was, well, what do I do after I tell my story? Because the story ends. Like I can sit in front of a microphone for 2 hours, tell the story, it's great, but then what happens next?
Right.
And then he can do the same. Now, he may have a little bit more of a story to tell, but then it's going to end as well. So when I brought it up to John in the summer, and then we kind of started, remember the red notebook at the diner?
Yep.
The red notebook at the diner. But then the light bulb went off for me, at least. And it's like, I can tell my story, he can tell his story, and then we can continue to tell our story through other people and letting them tell the story.
And that's a beautiful thing, because if I'm not mistaken, the clientele or the guests that you guys have brought in here all have their own individual story.
100%.
And not only that, it might be preparing them for something even bigger. Like, for instance, I know, spoiler alert, there's like, future possible draft picks of sports that you guys are going to be talking to. So like, that kid's going to have to get in front of a million light flashing bulbs and figure it all out. So why not start here, tell a story here, get comfortable behind the mic, get comfortable with critique, because not for nothing, when you put out this episode on YouTube, there could be somebody that says, I was going to listen to this, but the guy had a Cowboys hat on, and like, I don't want anything to do with that guy. He stinks no matter what. Right. And that's totally okay. That's people's opinions.
Right.
They could judge them from the cover of the book or whatever, but it's good for the reps. It's good for the kids. It's good to just get your voice out there and known that, there's a little bit of character behind, the story. You know what I mean?
No, this has been a blast to this point for me. I don't want to speak for you, but I know 100%. I've told you this has been a lot of fun for me. So I guess last question will be then, what advice can you offer to anyone who's considering this type of work or wanting to start their own business? Some of the pitfalls you've experienced. Is there anything you can kind of tell them, hey, look out for this? I know a lot of it, you have to go through it. Yeah. Like, you can say all you want, but until you've experienced it, but what one or two things can you share? It's
trial and error first and foremost. You know what I mean? Like, you have to throw, it's part of my language. You throw a bunch of shit at the wall, see which one sticks. You know what I mean? And we've done that. We've done the NIL thing. We've done the podcast network. We've done, other people's shows. We've built out the studio for rentals. Like, there's so many things. You have to keep evolving, or you're going to get lost in the dust. You know what I mean? People are going to be like, oh, yeah, well, the studio down the street's way better. It's got this, that, and third. And you're like, okay, how do I add this, that, and the third? You can, without any, like, for me, if I see something at another studio, I'm like, all right, I'll get that. You know what I mean? I'll add that to the laundry list of things that I need. But you can't be afraid of competition. I've always lived by, in order to be the tallest building in the tallest empire, the goal shouldn't be to tear every other building around you down so you're the tallest and last one standing. It should be, I'm just going to keep building this thing, and I'm going to be the tallest and the tallest and the tallest. And when this guy next door gets taller, guess what? I'm going to get taller.
I believe in that too.
And it feels good.
Karma's bad.
And not even karma. It's just like, karma, that makes sense. But like, you do want to do, and that's another thing, big thing. Do good business with everybody. Yep. Be polite to everybody. Now it sounds corny, but like good business and relate to people. Don't be fake. Be yourself. If I was fake, I would have no clients. The reason being is like, I'm not going to be like, hello, my name is Dave. I have a studio. Come rent for me. Or I'm going to say, yo, you want to do a podcast? Yep. You come to me and you'll have the best of the best stuff. Right. You know what I mean? And that's how you talk to other people. Get on their level. I was, trust me, when I was in education for a little while, people thought I was a grown kid because I would get to the level of my 5th or 6th grade students, and they're like, man, Mr. S is so cool. You know, why? Because I'm a kid. You know, like, you just have to adapt as you go. And listen, man, if I could do it all over again, I would probably become a sports agent or stick with football or this, that, and a third and play football. But this is what I was dealt, and I'm making the most of it, and I think I'm still having fun doing it, right? I mean, it's a grind, man. I'm having a great time.
This was a fun 30 minutes just now. So this was
the fact that went that quick is beyond me, because I'm used to just and then don't know how to bring it home.
Yeah, another thing I say too is building relationships, kind of what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Never burning bridges, always having those relationships.
Well, I mean, if I can add to it, I mean, I didn't physically meet you till only about 2 months ago.
Yeah, when you guys walked in
and
here.
when we walked in, but I knew of you because I saw him on your podcast, and I had actually reached out to you a few years ago.
I remember.
Just basically cold calling, and and you were going through a lot of different transitions, but it's not about being bitter or saying nasty things or anything of that nature. It's just like, okay, he's doing his thing. I mean, I was following your career from afar, but then the opportunity presented itself because he calls me up one day and he goes, I know where we can go. And he goes, Dave, we can go to Dave's studio. And it's like, that's it. That's the answer.
Because we were going to make our own little studio in his gym. And then I was like,
and
what
listen,
am I doing?
and you know what? Eventually, you could do that. You know what I mean? And you absolutely could do that. How do you do that? By learning about what's the nuances in it. And that's another thing. I'm never gonna. There's actually been a lot of clients that come in here, start here, figure it all out, and then say, "Hey, man, it's getting too expensive," or something like that, where I have to go do my own thing. I'll be the first one to send them an email like, "Okay, then get all of this, set it up this way. I'll help you along the way.
Well,
I do
right now,
virtual stuff.
This is a lot easier. So I'm
You
not
made
going.
our lives a lot
I'm not
easier.
going anywhere anytime soon, Dave. I can assure you.
Beautiful. I would say it's music to my ears, but it's money to my pocket.
As a business owner myself, I can respect that. I got a lot of respect for that.
It's the grind, man. That's all it is.
Well, Dave, listen, we want to thank you not only for the opportunity to have this beautiful studio to come to every couple of weeks, but for sitting down, being a part of this, sharing your story, and being a part of Destination Talk. We thank you so much for that.
No, man, thank you guys. You guys are keep going, and like I said, Paz, you got enough of a following, and you obviously all your clients, and I see the numbers; they're creeping on up. Every time you guys put out another piece of social media content, I'm proud because I'm just like, that's my studio. This is so cool. Like Paz is finally, turning it into what he talked about 3 years ago. Finally
Correct.
going through because look, man, wrestling is again. I feel like you've been wrestling for 18 years at Rutgers alone.
It feels like that too.
It feels like you've been wrestling there forever, but eventually one day, man, and it's unfortunate because it's just part of it, it'll run out. And what are you going to do after that? I could see you as a coach. I could see you as an influencer. I could see you as, somebody that travels the world to just do all this stuff. Same thing with you.
Yeah.
You have so many clients that that's the most rewarding thing in the world when they come back to you and they say, "Hey man, I'm in the area. Can I get a session in?" Like I'm literally, so when this ends, I'm going to ask, where's your stuff? Where's your play? I want to come train for a day and then not be able to walk for 3. But whatever, I'm 39 at this point. Might as well just try to keep fine tuning.
Well, maybe it'll be a future episode of Destination Talk, sharing some of the ideas that we're working on right now because we got some things in the hopper, but we're not at liberty to say anything else right now. But
NDAs go a long way.
But we'll have something to share hopefully sooner rather than later. But
yeah, man.
We thank you again, and we thank you all for being a part of Destination Talk, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks. Cut it.